Hey all, Tom Moran here from Tom's Big Spiders. Yes, I'm back. I took a couple months off because it was kind of my busy time of the year and I was having a difficult time keeping up with the weekly videos. And it was getting a little bit exhausting between this and work, so took some time off to relax, spend some time with the family, and bank up some videos that I can't wait to show you guys. But before we get into that, I do want to acknowledge the brand new theme music that I absolutely adore. Anybody that's been following my channel knows I've had the same theme song for quite some time, I think 4 or 5 years. Unfortunately, it recently changed hands, and with the fact that it changed hands, they started copyright infringing me. They weren't going to pull the song, but it meant they could put ads on my videos. I hate ads on my videos, so that was it for that. So we flew without one for a little while. So I think I posted on one of my podcasts, I'd be looking for somebody to do a new theme song, and as luck would have it, Eric Topping actually responded and commented. He was joking at the time that he'd love to do the Tom's Big Spiders theme song, but I was intrigued, and he said he'd give it a shot. So Eric and his band, Rocket 77, put together this theme song, and not to go into specifics, but the first time I heard it, I was like, this is it. I've always wanted something a little more high energy. We're not going the metal route because, quite frankly, A, a lot of folks aren't into the metal, and B, I don't think my channel comes across very metal. So I did, however, mention to Billy that I wanted something with more of a punk vibe. So the fact that I was approached by somebody who had a punk band just seemed too serendipitous to ignore. So they turned in this amazing theme. Now, I know everybody's used to the old theme. This is going to take some getting used to, but the way I see it, a few years down the road, this is going to be the new one that when everybody hears it start up, they know that one of my videos is coming, and hopefully they know it'll be full of great information. So a huge thank you. I can't thank you enough because I really wanted a theme song for this, and it seems great to have one now, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's reinvigorated me. I feel a lot more energetic when I get into this now after listening to that theme. It's kind of like UFC fighters coming out to their theme song. So really digging it. Hope you guys will too. And Eric and Rocket 77, guys, again, thank you so much for this. I can't wait to go ahead and start the new chapter in Tom's Big Spiders with this new theme. So enough talking about this stuff. Let's get into the actual spiders. Today we're going to be talking about Xenesthis species blue, or I believe it is the giant Colombian blue bloom, giant Colombian lesserback, black. There's a bunch of different names for them. But this is a large New World terrestrial species from Colombia that is very coveted in the hobby. Unfortunately, they are also very pricey. So I have a lot of folks that are eyeing them and don't want to spend that kind of money for a spider that they may have difficulty caring for. So what we're doing here is the first official husbandry video on a Xenesthis species. I did pick these guys up a couple of years ago, and I've been kind of updating people with them, but this is the first one that's like young adult size, so I figure I'm ready to kind of talk a bit about them. So enough of me talking. Let's move on and get into husbandry notes for the Xenesthis species blue. Okay, so it's time to rehouse my Xenesthis species blue. This one here has definitely outgrown this enclosure, and we're going to put her into something a little bit bigger. Now, these guys are super fast growing. I picked this one up in August of 2020. At that time, it was like an 1.25 inch sling. And what we had her in, if Billy wants to back up for a split second, is one of these here, which is the M design. It's 3.5 inches by about 7.75 inches by about 4.75 inches or so. Pretty big enclosure for a sling because they grow super fast. It wasn't long. I basically rehoused a bunch of slings, Xenesthis slings, into these. It wasn't long before I had to move them over into their juvenile or large sling enclosures. This here is a Systema, I think 101 ounce. I'll put the notes up. It's 9 inches by 6.75 inches by 4.75 inches. I will, when I do the notes, put the centimeters up there for folks that aren't living in the US. And this one here kept them for quite some time. At that point, she had burrowed down under here. Know that these guys do like to do a bit of burrowing. And now she is just molted. We're going to pull that one out after. I'm saying she. I obviously have not sexed the molt yet. I tend to not sex a lot of molts just because I like to be surprised. But we are going to sex this one out because if it ends up being a female, she will likely get a much nicer enclosure than what we're going to put her in here. And this is going to be temporary. So what we have here is one of the Sterilite containers. It's 6.5 inches deep, about 10.5 inches across, and about 16.5 inches deep or long. So I use this for a lot of my large terrestrials and large adult terrestrials. Now, considering this is a species that could get to be 7.5, 8 inches or so, this would be a little tight for it. And they do like to dig a bit as adults. So if this is a female, we will probably get, there's no probably, she's going to be getting a much larger, bigger, beautiful, probably some type of, I don't want to say bioactive, but an enclosure with a plant in it to really show her off, because they are gorgeous spiders. Now, word to the wise with these guys, I have several Xenesthis species, and they love to let the hairs fly. I've had, basically every time I go to feed these guys, I usually put gloves on because I end up itching around my wrists and my hands. Now, if you have Xenesthis species and you're like, well, mine kick, it doesn't bother me. Know that hairs impact different people differently. So I know, for example, Lasiodora species, the hairs tend to bother me. I've talked to other people that they don't bother as much. But also know that the more exposure you get to the hairs, the more sensitive you can become to them. So folks that start off in the hobby like hairs don't bother me that much, years down the road may find that the hairs are really tearing them up. I've seen blistering, I've seen really nasty situations with the hair. So just keep that in mind, because there's always somebody that comes on and goes, well, the hairs don't bother me. They may not bother you now, they may bother you later. So hopefully some of the blue is coming in. I did post a picture of this one up on Instagram where I managed to get the right angle and the blue showed up. But regardless, if no blue shows up whatsoever, they are gorgeous spiders. So we are going to try to get this one out into as I talk about wearing gloves. I forgot to put my gloves on. So first I'm going to put my gloves on. I'm not playing around with this. These are ones that every time, it took me a while to figure it out, but I would come down from feeding, I'd be like, man, I itch. Can't figure it out. It would be the Xenesthis species. It's something about the hairs, and a lot of them they can be very, very kicky, for lack of a better term. So we're going to use the old, brought to you by Simply Limeade. We don't want you doing, should have took the water dish out. If you want to ride the water dish in, I'm totally okay with that. No, please don't kick. I just don't want him to have a bald butt. This other way, no, there we go. There you go. And you can see very leggy. They do beef up a bit. Make sure Billy doesn't get a face full of hairs there. They do tend to beef up a bit as they grow up and mature, but as slings and juveniles, incredibly leggy, remind me a bit of Theraphosa species with the legginess. There you go, girl. There you go. Oh, what a good girl. Now, oh, good. So we got a good shot of her here. I'll try to get some light on her. Now what we have here, it is BioDude Substrate. I love the BioDude Substrate stuff, and I've kind of used it for just about everything. I just know it's trustworthy. It works great, but feel free to use any mix that you want. I get a lot of people asking me what my specific mixture is for my own personal substrate, because I do mix it up. I usually mix some topsoil in with some cocoa fiber and throw in some sphagnum or vermiculite. It really doesn't matter. Part of the fun of the hobby, I think, is experimenting with substrates. So you don't have to buy the BioDude stuff if you have one. I just find the stuff will hold moisture pretty well, and it does hold its shape very well for burrowers. I also have some leaf litter up here because I just like the way it looks. Whoops, sorry, buddy. He's already got a little bald spot. We got some moss here. I've switched over from the New Zealand moss to this green moss because it looks just so darn nice, holds moisture well. So this is a spider that comes from arid mountainous regions in Colombia, and Martin Hooser of Bird Spider CH, if you haven't checked out his channel, please do. It's just amazing. He's always out in the field seeing these guys in the wild, and he actually has some where he sees, I think it's Xenesthis species white out in the wild. There may be other ones, but so they come from more arid regions, so it's not as important to keep these guys as moist as some of the other species. However, I have noticed I have another one that's in a container that when it does get dry in this room, she tends to hover around her water dish. So when I see that, I take that to mean they appreciate a little more moisture. So what I did here is I put a little moisture basically back in here. It's a little moist underneath, and then I put dry substrate on top, so if she wants to burrow to get that moisture, she can. We will also have the water dish over here with the moss. I'll keep this area like a nice little oasis of moisture, so she can come over there and get some if she needs some. And again, if you notice them basically congregating around the water dish or around your little moss areas, then that means they want it a little more humid in there, so it kind of behooves you to add a little moisture to the substrate. Looks like Billy's getting some really good shots of her here, which is great. So I'm just going to try to keep talking so we can get beautiful pictures of this spider. What else are we missing? Temperatures. Used to be kept about low to mid 70s in the winter time, and then in the summertime it would hit, high 70s, so sometimes 80 degrees. We are now in a new house where it tends to get much warmer in the summertime. So in the summer here, it's usually high 70s to mid 80s. I've actually had to kick an AC up on here before because it was hitting 90s for a while. And then in the winter time, a little cooler. It'll dip down sometimes to high 60s, and then usually right around 72, 73 mark around there. They still do perfectly fine. They eat. They molt. They do all the things you want a spider to do, and it's obviously growing very quickly. As far as temperament, mine have been rather skittish. They have not been the least bit reluctant to kick hairs if need be, so keep that in mind. But they're also stunning, and even though mine did quite a bit of burrowing as slings and juveniles, they were also quite visible. I've never had any difficulty getting images of them. And as far as eating is concerned, I think I finally caught one of my feeding videos. I think I have it, or maybe it was one of the other Xenesthis videos I did. But their feeding response is right up there with Formictopus. They have, a lot of them have done this thing where they grab a cricket and they roll a couple times with the cricket and end up with the cricket on their stomachs as they are lying on their back, which is really a sight to behold, really fun to watch. So great feeding responses for them. All right, so there we go, Xenesthis species blue. Again, we're just kind of, I'm going to cut a little section of footage out of here, unfortunately, because I'm just staring at the camera as Billy gets good shots of it. But amazing spiders. People ask me if they're worth the money. I avoided them for years because they were just so darn expensive. It was actually Billy that got me a bunch of them, but it was like for Father's Day or my birthday or something. And for me, if you want to pick up, like, I know it's an expensive animal, but if you pick up one, they are just absolutely gorgeous. A pleasure to keep, very hardy. I know one thing people worry about with the expensive spiders is that they're going to lose them. I found mine that were very, very hardy, grew quickly, all the things you want for a spider that you're going to drop probably a couple $100 on for a sling, although I have seen deals where they're a little less expensive. So there we go, Xenesthis species blue, gorgeous animal. And, you know, I think honestly at this point, everybody at some point should try to get a Xenesthis in their collection and sell a child to afford it. So again, I think these guys are amazing. Had I known how cool they were years ago, I probably would have been less cheap and would have picked one up for myself. But I do get folks that are looking at them going, the price is just too high. Trust me, I appreciate it. And I know I've said this a million times, but if Billy wasn't the one to purchase these for me, I probably still wouldn't have any Xenesthis species. But it is one of those ones that once you get one in your collection, and I've heard from many folks to back this up, you kind of realize you've definitely been missing it all along. So that will do it for this one. As always, if you like it enough to subscribe, very much appreciate. Click a little circle up in there. If you want to check out more videos, see what I'm about, probably find them over in here. If you comment, I will respond. It just may take me a couple days because I tend to get a lot of comments. Guys, feels great to be back. Take care of each other. We'll catch you all next time.